manufacturing cool, or not just cool, I can make it viable. And that leads to women in the industry. So manufacturing has a 32% female population, distribution has a 28, and that includes office staff. Our population that works out on the floor is 58% female. It's that we created flexible offerings and we've opened it up to new workers. And one of the great sideline workers that we discovered out there is the female worker that has to have built-in flexibility.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Empowering Women podcast, where we shine a light on the voices, stories, and leadership of women driving change across industries. But about once a season, we like to flip the script and invite a male ally to the mic. Someone who's not just talking about empowering women, but actively building workplaces where equity isn't an afterthought, it's the foundation. And today's guest, he's just that kind of leader. Todd Warner is the president of MyWorkChoice, and he's on a mission to make work, well, actually work, especially for the frontline heroes in manufacturing and distribution. With more than 35 years in the staffing world, he's now leading a movement to give workers flexibility, autonomy, and real choices, something we all love to see in this community. So get ready, because Todd is bringing the heat, the humor, and the hard truths about what it really takes to build workplaces where everyone, including women on the front lines, thrive and thrive. Pardon me. So welcome, Todd, to the podcast.
Well, thank you, Shannon. Excited to be here.
So we love to start our conversations by getting to know our guests. It's my favorite part, if I'm really honest. So what do you want people to know about you, and what brought you to where you are today?
I just spent a whole career really in one of those careers where, you start when you're 23 and you're thinking this is just for like the summer. And all of a sudden you wake up, looking like me, and you've been doing it all your life. So got into the staffing industry and really kind of driven a lot by trying to be successful. And that's trying to make two sides of the world happy, trying to make companies in manufacturing and distribution happy with a deliverable, and really trying to make that really unspoken, maybe unchampioned workforce that's out there in the US better opportunities or better ways of doing the opportunities. I can't always be a champion for more pay, but maybe I can make the job a little bit more appealing somehow. And that's always been a goal. And that's always been the battle, and trying to get out there and trying to improve the opportunities. But yeah, just throw a stat out, 62% of all working people in the United States are under $20 an hour.
And that's just
that's
crazy,
a stat that
especially
I think
with
blows
inflation
most
as
people's
it is
minds.
today. Yeah,
Yes.
Go ahead.
And you think, that's borderline poverty level. And, but nobody likes to talk about all that, right? And that's the unnecessary evil, or part of a lot of big manufacturing Fortune 100 companies have that backbone of that workforce, but nobody really likes to talk about that. And I kind of feel like we're the Don Quixotes of it's an old reference, but we're out there fighting the windmills, trying to, address that workforce.
Yeah. So my understanding, Todd, and you and I have just met in the last several months. You spent decades transforming staffing solutions. So I'm really curious what sparked your passion for disrupting the traditional staffing model, especially in manufacturing, which is, by the way, where it's really needed.
Yes. And that's one of the niches. So it's all happenstance and survival and really selfish reasons. I was looking at, we had just transitioned and sold off a piece of our company, and it's really the third company I've kind of built and helped build and sell, and for people that I work for, et cetera. And I was looking at like my sunset ride here, and I was looking at a light industrial staffing model and manufacturing, and it really had some negatives. I mean, let's be frank. I mean, working as a temporary manufacturing light industrial for the last decade or more has not been the most exciting job. It's low paying, tough conditions, not the job you dreamed of, that kind of stuff. And employees weren't thrilled to do it, and they kind of showed it, as far as it has very high turnover. The industry has about a 400% turnover at that level. And you know, I was saying, man, I'm tired of getting yelled at by both sides of the world. You know, employees that don't like the job I just got them, and clients that are upset that the worker didn't show up today. And I thought, man, there's got to be a better way.
Well,
to
and then
do
the
this.
attrition too, right? Because they don't show
Yes.
up, and then they just eventually quit, and you got to start
Yeah.
all over again.
Right. And everybody's frustrated by that. One side's acting up for a reason and the other side's acting up for the result. And I'm stuck in the middle trying to explain it all. And I'm thinking, not how I want to write off in the sunset. So out of pure selfish reasons, I set out and said, how can we make this job viable, better? How can we make both sides happy instead of being negative and sad about it? And really, so that's what I mean by selfish motivation. It was really like, I just don't want to get yelled at. So how do I go out and reinvent this to be more successful for everybody? Because following the same trend was just going the wrong way. I mean, if you look at American Staffing Association trends for turnover, and our industry goes from like the high 300s all the way up to the mid 400s over the last 10 years.
That's crazy.
Is that crazy? That's crazy. And then if you really dive into some of the details of that, it's even much higher at entry level, like places like manufacturing and like supply chain.
Oh, goodness.
Because they're even higher on that chart. So it's insane. So yes, we need to make this better.
Well, in my mind, and I've spent most of my life in manufacturing or around it, so it's the heart of the USA, in my opinion. When you look at multiplier effect, when you look at what builds communities, it's a lot of times that manufacturers there that are the heart, and then you see all these ancillary services or suppliers build up around the manufacturer.
Yeah, and one of the challenges of what we've done at MyWorkChoice for the last 8 years is trying to change a little bit of that preset mindset. Because when we look back at manufacturing entry level, I mean, it sounds like an old, word cleaver story. I mean, it's it's a privilege to work here and get a job, and maybe someday we'll hire you and you can work here 35, 40 years and you can get a gold watch and you can buy the house and the car and you can have a family and a life. And that was the American dream in the 60s and the 70s, and it carried over. And, manufacturing got kind of a little bit lazy with that. They had the leverage. So
yeah, and people now want more agency in their lives and in their careers.
Absolutely. I mean, we looked at where in the world did 12-hour shifts come from, Shannon? I mean, who invented that? I mean,
I will tell you, Todd, I had a job for about 9 months that was a 12-hour swing shift. So think like 3 days on nights, a little bit of a break, and then 3 or 4 days on days. And it was just insane. Like I had no idea what time it was. Weekends, what the heck is a weekend? That meant nothing to me.
It all blends together. It all runs together. And you know what? It was somebody on the other side planning for what would be the most optimum. And really 12 hours came from the fact that I can rely on 2 people a day instead of 3. So I'm going to create a 12-hour, which lowers that risk that's involved, and I'll produce more product. But there's one given there. That is, people are always lined up to get a job at my place. So they'll do whatever I tell them. Well, that changed. And that changed about, we got data. We started looking at data 8 years ago that workers weren't following the rules anymore. And that's because unemployment levels were dropping. And when you get unemployment levels that are 4% or lower, leverage changes. It's no longer in the power of the company. It's now in the power of the worker, because I now have choices. And then you fast forward, you see COVID changed a lot of mindsets to people's life, how they want to manage their lives, what's their goals in lives. And then also the fact that we saw so much come up from the gig economy jobs of being able to Uber and DoorDash and Instacart and pick up earnings. There's a stat out there now that says 39% of all hourly workers under $20 supplement or primary income comes from a gig opportunity. So
you would
it's
almost have
heavy
to just to be able to support their families.
Exactly. So we now have on Indeed, in any major metro market, you can have up to 1,000 entry-level jobs available. And I put entry level into it because it's all entry level. Because if I go to a manufacturing site at entry level, or I go work for Chick-fil-A, it's basically in the same skill set, same experience level, and same pay level. So I'm comparing all those opportunities. Well, when you have 1,000 choices and then you add all these gig jobs, I can kind of behave the way I want to behave, because guess what? If you fire me, so what? I got
So what? I'm moving on.
So we identified that and said, okay, let's look at this. Let's study how the worker wants to work. And the message we picked up from these entry-level manufacturing is completely different than the historic view, right? That 35-year picket fence story.
Yeah.
Went out the window. First of all, Gen Z and millennials, not their dream job. I don't want to get off the couch playing Xbox and go stand in a manufacturing environment for 10 hours. I don't want to throw boxes in the distribution center for 10 hours. It's too exhausting, tiring. That's not what I do with the rest of my life. It's not really exciting. So all that's playing into all of this with the options, the choices, the desire to do the job. And then you got the clients over here still holding on to 1974. And they're all going,
they're just clawed in, man. They're dug in.
But this is how we've always done it. You know, the greatest statement of all time of anybody that's ever struggled in business. But this is how we've always done it. Not working anymore. So when we looked at the data was telling us they're now treating these opportunities more like the gig, more like the flexible, more like no commitment. I'll just make some money, then quit it and go get another one.
Yeah, makes sense.
Manufacturer
let's actually dive into that, Todd, if you don't mind. So flexibility. So just a really quick story for the audience. I was actually interviewed on the Shift Talks podcast, which is hosted by Todd and his staff. And I had lunch with them and they started talking about your model, Todd, about the flexibility that's at the heart. So I'm like, oh, I have to have him on the podcast. So if you don't mind digging into that model and telling people about it, because I think it's a game changer for a lot of families, but selfishly for me, especially for women on the manufacturing floor.
Absolutely. So in innocence, looking at the generic goal of how do we make these jobs now appealing and viable when there's 1,000 choices, it's not the most desirable, and there's so many different alternatives that allow for more schedule movement. Because let's face it, manufacturing and distribution has a very rigid approach to scheduling, and the reason that is not they're not trying to be difficult, or they're not trying not to be appealing. You can't, if the place won't function if somebody's not in a spot, right? And if you have an assembly line and you're missing somebody that puts a screw in a drill, then the drill stops there. So out of that necessity of always having to have somebody in a spot in the manual functions, they went the other way. They tried to put more rules into place. Like you can't have off any days, you know, and if you do, I'm going to give you points and then I'm going to fire you. And that's what they're following. And that's, unfortunately now that's counterproductive because they're quitting easily and going and getting another job. So how do you give them flexibility? And that really was the goal. So we wanted to, here's a real quick MyWorkChoice. If I can give that kind of flexibility to a worker, I'm going to make that job appealing. I'm going to make it very appealing. If I can have enough workers who want to be able to agree to that, and I can always fill somebody in who's a trained, experienced worker, then I give the client what they ultimately wanted, which is to make sure there's always this person in the spot. So we set out to do that, and that was the big goal. How do we take that strict Six Sigma manufacturing environment and convince them that if they let them take off and they use more workers and backfill for each other and allow flexibility in the amount of days that they want to work, amount of hours they want to work in the week, and even things like half shifts instead of always having full shifts, what would that do? And what we proposed to our clients was that would close the back door. If we could let workers out there in the workforce today, look at these entry-level jobs. And this, by the way, isn't just entry level, because we hear enough from trade levels on up that still would love to have this kind of flexibility. Because we have it in white collar. I mean, you can work from home, you can work remotely, you can go get your car fixed at lunch and come back an hour later and make it up. It's not a big deal, that kind of flexibility. Blue collar doesn't have that, right? Because it can't leave the line. So let's give them that. And that was our flexibility goal. So we were not going to change the operational models. I mean, if the shift starts at 7 and it ends at 4, it still will do that. But what if we made the shift 7 to 12 and 12 to 4, and we offered 2 blocks to people? What would that do? And then we said, what if you don't want to work always 5 days a week and you want to take some time off? Can you drop a shift? And don't put rules and policies and points in place, because people work to make money naturally. They'll find that water level mark for each individual. What do I need to work to make my income? And that's the hard lead, because people think, well, if I let them have off, they're never coming to work. Well, it's not true. They got to make a living, right? So they will, and we prove that out. But if we give them flexibility, it closes the back door. Now they don't quit
Mm.
because the most primary reason why people quit today in those level jobs is because they can't have off when they want. Give them off, they'll stay. Now we stop the attrition. Now we stop the 500,000. We had 2 clients we just did data on. They were running 1,000% turnover at the entry level.
Did you say 1,000%?
1,000%. And I'll tell you that it's more common than you think because people will do turnover data. I don't care about the controller who's been here for 32 years. I'm
Right.
worried about the entry levels. And I always challenge clients when we talk to them. I said, throw out all your statistics on turnover. I want you to focus on employees who have started in the last 3 years. What is your retention level at 3 years entry level? And you're going to see numbers that will go from 500 to 1,000% turnover. We had 2 clients, and what I mean by 1,000 is they were maintaining about 50 employees, and they had gone through over 500 employees in a year to try to maintain 50.
Oh my gosh. I have a quality background, Todd, so I'm thinking about like what havoc that creates on process consistency unless it's heavily automated.
Yeah, you never get to proficiency level. Because I mean, and most of the stories start off with people saying, well, we can't even get them to finish the training. You know, they don't make it through the training and they quit. They leave at lunch and never come back. And that kind of stuff. So yes, you're constantly training, churning. You never get to a proficiency quality levels that you want to be. So anyway, giving in closed that. And it had a lot of great benefits. One was we became a primary recruiter. We out-recruited everybody. And we'll show clients statistics on Indeed where we'll run their same ad that they couldn't recruit for. And we'll run the same thing, except add the phrase, we will allow you to take off when you want without penalty. And our ad will pull 100 times more than their ad. In fact, we'll beat Amazon in most of the markets that we're at, which is always the goal you want to try to achieve, right? Beat Amazon. So our ads will outpull, and it's just simple. It just gives that flexibility. It changes. We followed Uber. How did Uber make an undesirable job of putting a stranger in the back of your car, one of the top 10 places to work? The job did get better. It's how they did it. They allow you to work when you want. And that really is a real loose, free schedule flexibility, but it proved a point. So if I could take some of that and apply it to manufacturing, I can achieve the same result. I can make working manufacturing cool, or not just cool, I can make it viable. And that leads to women in the industry. So manufacturing has a 32% female population, distribution has a 28%, and that includes office staff. Our population that works out on the floor is 58% female.
Oh my goodness. I'm going to repeat that for the audience. He just said 58% female.
And
that is a lot.
That's
not been my experience as an
all
engineer. Let me just say that.
And that's at that really, really challenging space, which is out on the floor. And how do we achieve that? It's that we created flexible offerings and we've opened it up to new workers. And one of the great sideline workers that we discovered out there is the female worker that has to have built-in flexibility. And, you know, just to quote the stats, I mean, single family homes that are raising children, 82% of those are female. 82% are female. If I have something happen with my kids, I have to take off to deal with it.
Yep.
It's life. You can be either the primary or you could be the secondary in the household. We have retirees, college students, all those kind of folks that for whatever demands are on their life, they need that flexibility. And when we ran ads that said, and this is kind of the cool thing, and I tell our clients is we can take your manufacturing job, which is at the bottom of that list of job postings, and we can make it at the top. And the way we do that, including beat all the gig jobs. Because, you know, when you go do a gig job, you're not sure how much you're going to make. You may turn on your app and say, I'm going to drive for Uber, I'm going to DoorDash, I'm going to Instacart, but I don't know if I make any money tonight or do make money.
Oh, that's a good point. It's not consistent.
It's not consistent earnings.
Yeah.
Right. If I can create a flexible opportunity at a known client that's geographically close to you, safe, you're familiar with, they know you're part of the team and the family, and yet you have that kind of flexibility to every day decide I'm going to work, not going to work. I need to call off because I have an emergency. I'm not going to get penalized. I'm not going to get fired. I can do that. And I know every time I walk into that door, I'm earning. Maybe it's under $20, but I know that's what I'm earning every single time. And then we add same day pay to our app as well. So you put all that together, and we have just created a world that can create 58% female workers in manufacturing. Because we met their needs. We came to them and hit the spot that was the most important thing to them. I need lifestyle flexibility. I need it. It's not a
I think
want, it's a
everybody needs
need.
it. I can't think of a time you get up and poop happens, right? I mean, crap happens. You get up and something happens and you got to adjust your day. I'm just white collar and have the opportunity to do that.
You know, Shannon, you're right. And that's why I say we try to be that champion for the blue collar because nobody wants to acknowledge it,
Yeah, true.
especially when they're doing point systems and penalties for time off. And I won't let you take off the afternoon to go see your kid's soccer game, or I'm going to give you a point. When you treat people like that blue collar level, and I say this because I understand why they're doing it. It's out of like fear that they can't operate without doing it that way.
Yeah,
And
because
on
they're
the
under
other
their
side,
own pressures. Like they have to
they're
get
under their
so
own
many
pressure.
units out the door. And if they
Yes.
don't, then it's just going to get worse and on a
Yes.
higher level.
So we created that world that we can solve that problem by putting more like-minded people together in a community. So when a client wants 100 people in manufacturing, we build a community of 140, 145 people. And it's a combination. Some people want to work full-time, but occasional day off, all the way down to, I just want to be able to pick up a day or two a week. And all them glue together to create a workforce that works, like you said at the beginning. And I say, listen, it's not about, everybody says there's no reliable workers anymore. That's not true. It's not that they're not reliable. They have what you just described. Life happens to them and they have to be able to react. And if you're going to be that closed-minded to say they're not reliable because I never let them have off, that's not fair. They are reliable. They can be very good workers if you allow them to manage their lives. They'll be here
I've
for a
always
very long
believed
time.
it's the system and the process that cause the problem. So that's 90+% of the
100%
problems. You're
right.
always going to have outliers where that's not the case. But
Yeah.
the system just doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
The other system.
Yes. So we created this lure of being able to create your own schedule, and we attracted a large female population. And what we think is a great accomplishment for manufacturing is that we opened up the new world of manufacturing. Because that's part of the battle, right? Part of our marketing to attract workers is, hey, this isn't your grandfather's steel plant, okay? It's not people walking out with all dust, dirt-covered faces of pellet box and molten lava spilling in the backgrounds. That's not what we're talking about anymore. We're talking about super clean environments. They're bright. They're painted white inside now, and they're all bright. Some of them are air conditioned, but they have robotics and electronics and new technology that's in there. And these are different places, but
how are you
won't
shifting that
experience it unless you can get them in the door, right?
I'm curious how you're shifting that mindset for people, because I feel like a lot of people have that mindset.
Yeah. So one, the power of the shift schedule. It's just like, would I ever think of putting a stranger in the back of my car at 11 o'clock at night on Friday night? No. But freedom of working and making money whenever I can, when I need it. All right, I'll try it, right? Same kind of mindset. We're going to get you into these facilities by luring you with a flexible schedule offering that allows you to earn money, but pick the amount of hours from 8 hours a week to 40 hours. And you can set that. Okay, that's so powerful that says to the person who's a little intimidated by manufacturing, I'll give it a try. For that, I'll give it a try. And if it doesn't work out, 990 other jobs, right? But I'll give it a try because of that schedule. So we get them in there. And then part of it's our marketing. We use a lot of females in our marketing. They're inside our actual clients' environments. You can see bright lights. You see the bright, clean facility. You see a robot going behind them. They got the safety vest on and they're happy with a smile. Okay, if that person can do it, then I can do it, right? And sometimes we'll include the stories of why they're doing it. I'm raising 2 kids. I need it. I can pick up 4-hour shift blocks a couple times a week and a Saturday. I can supplement my income. All these kind of great reasons that are out there. Retirees, I need to make, retirees today have to work. You can't, they're not going off a lot of times, especially at this lower level, and being able to never work again. So they're back in the workforce, but I can't do 60-hour weeks. I can't stand for 10, 12 hours. But if you give me 4 or 5-hour blocks, a couple days a week, I'll do this forever. I mean, I love this job. So yeah, we open up those opportunities for folks to come in, but it's really about making the concessions to the flexibility of wanting a lifestyle and choices and decisions, and then now applying that to manufacturing. And that's why we get the results and the numbers we get.
Are you seeing a shift in how manufacturers are thinking about? I started with gender diversity, but let's start with workforce diversity. Like, are you seeing trends or hope for the future?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Desperation opens their minds, right?
Good
When,
point.
when people are lining up, they can have all their own harsh opinions and their own whatever old ways, and they can think the way they want to think. But when there's nobody at that line and nobody coming in, and your production's starting to drop, and you have openings, you start opening your philosophy a little bit, right? And you start bending it. And it's funny because I'll talk to folks and I'll have like the old curmudgeon like me sitting on the other end of the table, and I have to let him wax philosophically about how the old days were. But once he's done with that, I can reel him back in and go, well, that's all great, but I gotta deal with the reality of today. And this is what today's workers are like and what they want. And we have sideline workers out there. We have a ton of female workers who would love to be able to work in your facility. And it's interesting about manufacturing in the United States. A lot of it's in small towns. We're not in, metro markets. We're in the
Not
rural
normally.
areas, right? I'm never doing a sales call in South Beach or Vegas. I'm always somewhere in the middle of Iowa, right? So
Yeah.
when you're out there doing this, and those communities are small. I'll go into it and we'll check the community's got 9,000 population. I got 500 people working in the plant, but I think everybody in town's basically worked for us, and I've run out of employees. So let's tap into those sideline workers. Guess what? I bet you have a huge female population that doesn't work here. And I'll tell you why they can't work here, because they can't commit to 60, 50 hours a week and never miss a day. They can't do that. But what if we did this? That comes around, and they start to think about that, and they start to realize, yeah, not a bad idea. And I got to tell you, even specifically about the female worker, because, manufacturing's always obviously had its mindsets. And I think with all the changes and everything that they're doing now, it's a huge value add. It's a huge value add. And they love our stats. I mean, I sell that. I'm talking to a prospect and I tell them we got 58%. That it lights their eyes up. That wouldn't have happened 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I would have gotten people in the room going, "Are you serious? How do you do that?" But now I can say we got 58%
are you sure women
population.
can do what I need them to do? Right.
Exactly. And now I think they believe it because the sites have come around with so much of operational models now that make these things easier, safer. Everything else is good about it, that they're doing it. They just don't know how to get the worker in the door now. So now it's like, okay, I've prepped our facility to be able to be a job function that can be done by anybody, really at a light level. How do I lure those sideline workers? How do I get the people that weren't attracted to this job into it? And we're that vehicle to do it. And the
do you
stats
think
don't
it's a
lie.
skills gap or a culture gap then? You hear all this. Well, I mean,
Culture.
I'm in HVAC, so
I'm
I
gonna say
hear all
culture.
about the, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm with you. I'm going to say culture. I work in that low level. So if you're talking, if you're doing another podcast with somebody who's talking about recruiting engineers, they're going to probably lean into more about how many females are going into engineering, how many are taking engineering degrees, graduating and moving on, and et cetera, et cetera. I work in that unskilled level. So
Right.
I like to say a lot of it is culture. It is a understanding of it on both sides, a culture of, yeah, these are friendly environments. And if we can make them conducive to your life, it's a win. On the other side, we can say, listen, these are great workers, super reliable, a lot of times overqualified in that they may have degrees and things like that are taking a $18 an hour job because they have to, because of the necessity of life right now. So we really can do that, but I don't think it's skill. I think it's that. And the appreciation we get from the worker, where you've created an opportunity for me to consistently earn at a place that could hire me someday, maybe if I want that in my life. But for now, the fact that I can take off when I need to for my kids and they're sick and I can go to this, or I can do this, or I can do that, or all that kind of stuff. They love their jobs. So go all the way back to my end goal, right? My end goal was I wanted to be liked. And now I got our employees who in the old days kind of were like mad after day 2, and they realized they were doing a job they didn't want to do, and they're doing it for $16 an hour and they're unhappy, to now they love us. And the simple change is we let them pick their own schedules. And that's it. And just by doing that, we've made people like, they love us now. They're thrilled. They're happy, and then on the other side, I got a client who end goal was, I just need to make sure I have my people in spots, and you're able to achieve that. And we just had a great event with GE Appliances down in Lafayette, Georgia. It was for the Georgia Manufacturing Association, and they did a great event and showed people all the new technology, robotics, and all this kind of. But they spent a great deal of time talking about the model that they use and the flexibility. And they were telling me afterwards that most of the questions came from not about the robotics. It came about how do you use this flexible model in your site and what does it do for you?
Yeah, I felt sorry
And
for poor Adam and Holly when I had lunch with them because I was just peppering them with questions because I was so intrigued. Yep.
yeah, so it's kind of good to be in a situation where I think it took me 30 some years to get there, but I got to a spot where I finally figured out how to kind of make, at least for now, how to make both sides happy about these job opportunities in manufacturing.
Yeah, I love that. What do benefits look like? Because when I think about women, they obviously
Yeah.
care about healthcare benefits. They care about the time element. What do benefits look like in your model?
Yeah, we none basically. To be frank, we don't offer a lot. We have a benefit plan. In fact, I think it's a great one because it's really low contribution and it flexes with them. They can literally not work for 60 days and it doesn't affect their health insurance. But we
Oh,
have a
that's
light
huge.
we have light participation. So a lot of the folks that are coming to us, it's not their primary concern at that under
Interesting.
$20 an hour workforce. And I don't know if I can really give a good answer why that is, but it doesn't seem to be the
Interesting.
primary. Our number one benefit that we have that's far above everything else is the fact that we give the flexibility, and that's why they do it. The price structure of our industry is brutal. I mean, I've done it all my life.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Yeah,
It's
I mean,
tough.
I've seen it in my own company in my day job. It is
Yeah.
brutal.
I mean, and I think one of the battles, because I'll do posts and stuff, and I'll get that person that it's always like somebody that's at a higher level position, and they'll say something like, "Well, if you just pay them a decent wage," and hey, I'm all for that, but you're going to change the whole infrastructure of U.S. economy then, because you're going to see everything that you buy today go up significantly in cost, and you don't want to see that. Well, then don't
Yeah.
tell me that you want to raise, because I feel bad too about people that are working for 15, 16, $17 an hour at hardworking jobs. And how do they get by and how do they make money? And I'd love to see them all make a whole lot more money, but that's not my
Right.
call. And it's like
Yeah.
I always say, my world is the reality. My world is this is
Yeah.
what, and this is part of that little underlying secret, right? Is that companies don't want to really talk about the fact that they have a massive workforce that works for under 20. They want to talk about their higher paid or their new interns that just came in from, engineering school or, blah, blah, blah. They want to talk about those because those are great stories to talk about. They don't want to talk about, hey, listen, we have 400 people back in the plant working for $16 an hour with limited or no benefits. Don't want to talk about that. So
Nope.
again, that's why it's such a great thrill to be able to get something. Because
Yeah, because it is still a win. It's just a different kind of win.
Right. And Shannon, when I'm looking at the model that's been around, temporary staffing's been around for, I think, almost like 90 years. It actually started right after World War II. So it's been around for that long. And really, it's been what it is. And they could say they have benefits, but by the time somebody who makes $15 an hour contributes to the benefit plan, they can't
Fair
survive.
enough.
So they don't do
That's
it.
fair.
And the industry has 4% of the population in staffing, temporary help, actually participates in the benefit plans, 4%. So that tells you something, right? So I looked at this and go back to my whole, how do we make this better? I can't get clients to pay more because that's the economic decision that these businesses have made,
Yeah.
right? I can't
Yeah.
get them benefits because nobody will pay for them and they can't afford them. We can't, we don't
Right.
have any margins to do it. The client won't pay for it because they don't want to pay more money for that. And then I'm sitting there, what can I do? Well, the only thing that's movable is how they work, the schedules. And that's really where the idea came from. I thought, well, the only benefit I can possibly recreate out of this job that's been going on for 90 years is I can change that they don't have to work the way they did when they built the Model T. They don't have to work 40-hour, 8-hour, 10-hour, 12-hour shifts and miss X number of days with X limited time off. And you get fired if you don't do that. If I can change that, that's not going to cost anybody anything. And if you think about it, go back to your point, if I can reduce that, if I can take that retention from 500 and take it down to maybe 30, I'm going to get proficiency.
Yeah.
I'm going to get better production. I'm going to save on all my training costs and turnover costs. I'm going to give money back to the client. And it's actually saving them money. It doesn't cost them a dime to give these people more time off because our model backfills for each one. So they have people in the positions and they have better, happier, more productive long-term workers. So it's a huge win for the client side as well.
I also think
So
it's a win for what I'm gonna call frontline supervisors, even if they get paid more and what have you, because many of them want to let that person offer their soccer thing, but the system says no, and they can't afford to let them go. So it opens up empathy and caring opportunities for the frontline leadership in a plant.
that's right. And that's a great, in fact, I'm going to take the recording of what you just said there and then play that for people, because when I'll talk to a supervisor, the first gut reaction is the opposite. The first gut reaction is, oh, I can't let them have them off. I need somebody, I'll be short, I can't produce, and I'll get yelled at. No, no, no. We got to backfill that automatically backfills for them. And it's a trained person. And this is how the population works. The new community works for that. It's a new workforce. And then they go, what do you mean? And then I will walk them down and go, so you can give your long-term person that time off to go to the kids' soccer game. And you have a trained person that fills in for them that that you see 2 or 3 times a week. Oh, that'd be amazing. That'd be awesome. That would be great. And I go, yeah, because deep down, you're right, Shannon, they want to give them off. They don't want to say no to them because I had a supervisor say this to me the other day. I thought it was hysterical. He's sitting there, we're going over this, and he goes, well, I got a good example. He said, this morning I was driving into work, and he said, I forgot to take the dog to the groomer. And I thought, my wife is going to kill me. So I turned around, went home, got the dog, wrapped the dog up, took her to the groomer, and I came into late, 48 minutes late to work. But I don't have to sweat it because I'm salaried and I'm going to work. I'll work a little later, make up for it. But if a temp did that, I'd be giving them a point. And if it was more than 4 points, they'd be up for termination then. And you're sitting here telling me that, and I'm going, that's just what people want to be able to do. They want to be able to take off when it's an emergency, it's life, whatever. And we don't let that level have that freedom. And they get frustrated and they quit.
I think it's around, I call it human centric or human fueled leadership. Are you seeing that shift with your clients where they are offering this opportunity?
Yeah. My battle still is the elder statesman of manufacturing.
Okay, fair enough.
Right. And I HR is always shaking their head yes and love it. And they see that movement and they want to offer that and give that, and it all makes sense. And most of the like-minded supervisors and like that ops people out there get it too. But leadership, a little bit hard to get them over that.
Interesting.
Yeah, and they're still living in way in the past, and they still think, well, you have to earn the right to be here and stuff like that, kind of mindsets, stuff like that.
Yeah, because I think I have the fortunate privilege to lead early talent, but to your point, they're white collar. But I've found that that's huge for them. Obviously, they care about money, they got to pay their bills, but there's a huge element of the flexibility, the hybrid work, all that is a huge incentive aside from salary. And if they don't have that, they'll turn down a higher salary. That's my experience.
Absolutely. At all levels, like you're saying, it's the hottest currency out there right now. And I've seen so many, I've seen cool articles of doing surveys of, will you take a job, but if they don't offer you flexibility in how you work, will you stay? And no, they'll say no, they won't take it. So it goes all the way down, and the mindset will change because they're being forced to change. And nothing's better than that. When you have this manufacturing that's in a rural area that's running out of people, and their alternative is my plant's going to get moved to Mexico, I'll let down some of my old ways of thinking and open my mind a little bit.
And then you just got global, I'll call it political and economic uncertainty, right? And that's moving, which I'm happy about. That's moving manufacturing back to the United States, albeit probably slowly. But to your point, I'm not going to go pay, normally now you pay maybe $1,000 for your phone. If you buy an expensive smartphone, it's going to be like $2,000 if they do indeed move some of that back, right?
You hit a hot button. Everything I've talked about, the low unemployment levels and everything else, this is just going to escalate, right? I mean, we're moving, which is great. We're moving more manufacturing back to the U.S. You see the auto industry's already embarked on it and starting to do it. Everybody's going to follow suit. They're getting third-party suppliers. They're moving back to the U.S. But what is that going to do? That's going to put more pressure on entry-level manufacturing jobs, which already are hurting, are already challenged, are already not being able to fill the spots. And I'm excited about that, because I think our model is just waiting to make that be a solution. And all I need, if my number one barrier would be that old time thinking leadership, and I really feel this will push them finally over the edge, and they'll open their minds to a new way
Yeah.
you know, new
Because
way of looking
I
at
feel
that
like your
workforce.
thinking goes from the or, it either has to be this or that. You're saying it can be and, right? It can be a
Yes.
structured shift schedule that you need, and it can have flexibility that you don't think it
Yeah.
can.
Yeah. Flexibility has so many meanings nowadays, but the fear of flexibility to manufacturing is I can't have people coming and going when they want. And I agree. You can, not in those structured environments. So our flexibility is still within operational model schedules, right? It's still that same start and end time, same lunchtime, same shifts, all that kind of stuff, because we can't really mess up that operational flow and model. And it's too much for somebody to take on that. But what we can do is create half shifts, create a world where I can take off a day or two or three and not get penalized. And that gives enough flexibility to maybe not open up the entire workforce, but it opens up a whole new workforce out there than what has been available.
Interesting. Well, I'm going to ask you one final question. Pretend that you're standing in a room full of women, younger women or women of all ages, and they're thinking about entering a manufacturing career. Like, what advice would you give them based on what you've seen?
Oh, go for it. I mean, it's your world right now. It is. I mean, that is, I mean, I just love to see these stories, especially and I just sit here and talk about my lower level. Our lower level is about necessity of life. I love to see people that have committed to careers in it and really going in there and changing. I mean, the best thing that I've seen in the last probably 3 or 4 years is leadership is turning female. I just love that. I mean, women that have worked their way up through manufacturing and now becoming the site director, the plant manager. That's the change that we need, because that's always been the heavy percentage, right? That's been a heavy male percentage, and I'm seeing that change.
Still is.
So, yeah, it still is. Yeah, and I act like it's like completely changed, but to see new ones, when I get on a call and the plant manager's a female, I mean, it's great. That's awesome, and so hopefully someday that doesn't become like something that you're acknowledging. It's something that's
Right.
the norm. But I mean, I would tell women to get. I mean, it's an ever changing because of the robotics and the technology and the design of it. But I just think it's such a great opportunity, and it's needed. It just really is needed. But I'd say go for it. At our level, I mean, I think we're hitting a female workforce that really needs what we need, and we'll keep championing that side, the lower level. But yeah, if I had a room full of women that are getting into that, it would be, yeah, like, go for it. I mean, it's got tons of opportunities, and it needs to change. I think it's recognizing that. I mean, I think even my curmudgeons that I battle, I think they get the idea that they need more female leadership than they have, and they need to do that. So,
Well, you're changing one heart at a time, Todd. One
yeah,
heart
exactly.
at a time. Well, anything else you'd like to close with about MyWorkChoice, where we can find you? Any
Yeah, I
final
mean,
wisdom?
MyWorkChoice.com website's a great place to start. But yeah, just no, I mean, we're going to keep on doing what we're doing. It seems like we've fit a really good purpose right now, and it's nothing better than that, right? You're not even almost working anymore. It's like you're championing a new thing for people that can make lives better on both sides, and that really makes it work easy. So we're going to we'll keep on doing what we're doing.
Well, from somebody who's been their entire career in manufacturing, thank you for doing what you're doing. It's changing a paradigm that's well overdue and needs to you're given a community. So the community is able to pull together and meet the need of the client, which is a totally different way from the way we've looked at it.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, thank you, Todd. And a really quick shout out to Adam Richmond and Holly Pennington. They are part of Todd's team and had the blessing and to be on their podcast and to be now a part of their community. So thank you, Todd, for your time. And folks, we will see you soon on the next episode of the Empowering Women podcast. Bye, everybody.